There's a handful of guys to worry about in Auburn's matchup against Texas A&M this Saturday.
Freezing temperatures are likely for several hours inland and a few hours closer to the coast.
Yes.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me for War Rapport Wednesday, it's Mike G of the War Rapport. We've got 4 players specifically that we're going to highlight, 2 on offense, 2 on defense that we think could pose a factor on the Texas A&M side of things, as of course Auburn heads to College Station to start conference play this Saturday. Mike G, let's start on the offensive side of the football. And both of these players, not quarterback. Obviously, Connor Wegman will have a huge impact on this game, but let's look at his 2 wide receivers, Evan Stewart and Ainias Smith. Let's start with Evan Stewart, primarily an outside wide receiver, but they do move him around the formation, Mike G. And so when you look at it, he's got 96 snaps on the outside of the field, and then he's got 26 snaps in the slot. 53 are to the left, 43 are to the right. So they moved him around the formation. And Mike, I cannot wait to see how they use DJ James to manipulate their coverage. Does DJ James follow Evan Stewart around the game, or does Auburn trust all their defensive backs, with Nehemiah Pritchett probably making his return, and say, no, we can cover you with anybody?
Yeah, look, I think that this is going to be strength on strength, right? A&M's receivers look good. Hugh Freeze made a point in this week's presser about talking. He wants people to remind people that they've been recruiting 5 stars for a few years. There's a ton of talent here. So Evan Stewart is a talented guy. They've got talent everywhere. He leads the team in targets. He's got 19 catches on 27 targets. Wegman has looked for him early and often. He's got 2 drops on the season. So I feel like he's a guy that DJ James could lock down. But it's going to be a fun matchup. To answer your question, yes, I think DJ James follows around the field. He is the one guy in that wide receiver room you absolutely cannot let get off, right? You cannot afford for him to have a good game, and expect to win this one. I expect Auburn to struggle to score points in this one. So I expect them, if they're going to have a chance to win, to have to hold A&M's receivers to, I don't know if you stop them, but I think DJ James can contain him.
Yeah, and I think a bend don't break style of play could possibly happen on the Auburn side of things for in this battle in College Station. Evan Stewart, he's listed right at 6 foot.
Mm-hmm.
Watching him play, I don't think he is 6 foot, but that doesn't mean he's not dynamic. I mean, the guy moves very, very well. He's very shifty, and I think he's really good at creating space with his routes and his burst. I think DJ James will be able to physically lock him down. I just do. This isn't the matchup that I'm most concerned about, but it's an important one, because if DJ can't, then that's an issue. And I like Nehemiah Pritchett, if DJ doesn't follow him around and Nehemiah Pritchett's got him, and maybe Nehemiah plays boundary corner on Saturday, we'll see. This is a big task for his first game back. This is a big task in front of him. So keep an eye on Evan Stewart on Saturday. The other guy, Ainias Smith, plays more in the slot. Mike G, 93 snaps in the slot, 42 snaps out wide. So the majority of his snaps are going to be in the middle of the field. And with the news of Keontae Scott missing some time, who's been so good in the middle of the field, potential return of Donovan Kaufman becomes even more important, because Ainias Smith has to be covered consistently and effectively if Auburn wants to win on Saturday.
Yeah, look, little bit of news for the listeners. Donovan Kaufman is on track to play on Saturday, so that's huge news for Auburn, obviously. He was the highest graded defensive back through 2 weeks, according to PFF. Before sitting out, Sanford. So there was some concern. I felt like them holding him out was very precautionary, understanding that he's going to be a key piece there. But with Ainias Smith, right, second most targets on the team, Wegman has looked for him often, and he's averaging 14.9 yards per catch. So that's a first down and a half, Zac, every time this guy touches the ball, and they can find a way to get it to him. You limit these two. I think that Donovan Kaufman is going to be up to the task. If he's healthy, he's up to the task of slowing this guy down. But man, look, we've looked at some of the tape of Ainias and Weigman when he's scrambling. He seems to he's one of those guys that can kind of settle into a broken down play and find an open spot where the quarterback will just find him. He nestles in. He's got good hands. I'm kind of giving away something for later right now, but I don't feel great about Auburn's matchup. But this is actually one of the areas where I do feel good about Auburn is defensive backs versus wide receivers. They've got a ton of talent, but I think that Auburn's defensive backfield is really unheralded here, man. They've done a great job so far this season, despite the competition. They played assignment sound football. Assignment alignment is what Hugh Freeze has talked about. Donovan Kaufman's been one of the best in the country at that. So I think he can lock down Ainias Smith.
Yeah, I think so too. And look, they may play more zone and kind of use Jalen Simpson. I mean, he's been so good at covering so much ground so far this season. Maybe that'll continue to happen as well. I can't wait to see what Ron Roberts' defensive game plan is, because there's no way he's fully just unloaded the bag yet when we talk about all of these potential, blitz packages that he has at his disposal and what we've seen him do at previous stops. I can't wait to see, how they use Eugene Asante and Larry Nixon and these athletic linebackers to potentially help elevate their play as well. Because you can't imagine that he's used everything yet. And I think from a coverage standpoint, that's certainly going to be the case, Mike G. As far as Connor Weigman goes, the Texas A&M quarterback, how much does he scare you as an SEC quarterback?
I don't want to diss Connor Weigman, right?
Okay, so I'm higher on Connor Weigman than you are. It sounds like, because I think he's a top half SEC quarterback right now.
Yeah. I don't want to diss Connor Weigman. Okay. I think that you have to give A&M some credit, even in the loss to Miami early in the season. They lost that game. It felt like a block. They moved the ball. They moved the ball versus Miami, and they scored over 30 points. And part of that game is part of the reason why I don't feel good about this game in particular for Auburn.
I get
it.
But
he's 70% on the season, and they played somebody. Right? Hear me out. He's just under 70% on the season, and they've actually played somebody. So Connor Weigman, man, 8 touchdowns to 2 interceptions here. 8.5 yards per attempt is not great. That's not a great average. So he's looking for guys short. I think personally, what Auburn should do to Weigman is take away the easy stuff, make him push the ball down the field. If it's me, Connor Weigman's going to have to beat me with his arm in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you, especially if Donovan Kaufman's back. I'd play guys close to the line of scrimmage, especially with kind of some of these receivers that aren't the biggest guys. And you've got DJ James. Beat the crap out of them at the line of scrimmage and make them get behind you. I'm 100% with you on that.
It should be noted, too, that his receivers have 4 drops total already on the season for him. So his adjusted completion percentage is just under 80%. As well, too. It's not that Auburn needs to worry about Connor Weigman. So if anybody heard me say I'm not worried about Connor Weigman, I am certainly worried about him. But is he a guy? He's not unflappable. He's certainly not unflappable. Sure. And, if Auburn can generate any form of a pass rush on this guy, I think you can force him into some mistakes that in a tight game may be the difference between winning or losing.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. I asked our Locked On Aggies host, Andrew Stefaniak.
Yeah.
I asked him, okay, who are the defensive guys that we need to be looking at? And he gave me these 2 guys, and they kind of surprised me. Sounds like they surprised you as well.
They did.
Mike G. So we'll talk about that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Bird Dogs. Mike G., do you like being comfortable?
I do like being comfortable.
Do you like looking good?
I like looking good and being comfortable.
Do you like just sweating a ton?
No, I don't like that.
No. All right. Sounds like Bird Dogs are the shorts for you. You got to love Bird Dogs. They're my favorite pair of shorts. I'm actually wearing some right now. I'm in Ohio for a week, and the only leg wear I brought, Mike G, I brought 3 pair of Bird Dog shorts because that's all you need, because they're so versatile. went to the zoo earlier today, and all these people were talking about how hot it was. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm so cool and comfortable in these bird dogs. So you need to check them out. Head over to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or enter promo code lockedoncollege at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. Mike G, we asked Locked On Aggies host Andrew Stefaniak, all right, give us some names. Give us some names of who we need to be talking about on the Auburn side as we talk about this. And I want to keep in mind, Andrew also covers Auburn. So for Auburn Daily. So he is he is the guy for this matchup. The defensive players he gave us, Walter Nolan, defensive lineman, and Fidel Diggs. And he listed him as an edge, but he kind of plays all over the place. So let's start with Walter Nolan. Spends most of his time at defensive tackle. He plays on the left side and the right side of the defensive line. They move him around a little bit, but primarily at defensive tackle, that 3 technique, 4-eye roll. He's played some end. And looking at his numbers, like he's okay, right? Like he's okay. He's solid at that position, Mike G. Fidel Diggs lines up all over the place. And when you think edge, similar to Auburn's jack position, you think about pass rush. And he's had 48 pass rush attempts on the season. And he's only had 4 pressures. I think he had 2 hurries and 2 quarterback hits. I believe he's not gotten a sack based on what I was looking at earlier today. So I'm just a little surprised at these 2 names because the big talk has been Auburn's offensive line that's banged up. Can they beat this Texas A&M defensive front? And looking at these 2 guys specifically, you know, the Aggies experts said these are the 2 guys we need to be talking about. I was just a little surprised when I dug into more about these 2 guys, Walter Nolan and Fidel Diggs.
Yeah, look, their pass rush grades are pretty average, right? An 8% pressure rate, I guess, on the amount of pass rushes he's had is
not good, not
great, right?
Yeah.
And I think that Auburn's line can hold up well versus these guys by the numbers,
even when they're banged up.
Yeah, I do. I think Auburn can hang well. Now, I'm not professing to know what Texas A&M has at the 2 deep here, right? So what do they bring behind these guys? Who knows, man? And if they throw a lot of guys at this offensive line, we'll see what it looks like. But this was Auburn's main area of concern this offseason was shoring up the offensive line. Now you get to put that to the test versus these 2 guys, right? By the numbers, I think they should do well. I think they should really do well. Their PFF grades weren't great. And I didn't get a chance, Zach, to go back and look at a ton of tape on these 2 guys. Yeah. But listen, they're talented. You can see the flashes of the talent in the tape, right? How much of it will they have put together by Saturday? I'm not convinced that it's going to look like a polished product by Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think Auburn's ability to score points on Saturday comes down to the trenches. Auburn's O-line versus A&M's front 7. I'm not going to say D-line, I'm going to say front 7. Because I think Auburn's receivers and Auburn's scheme, at least theoretically, is going to be able to move the ball on the Texas A&M defensive backs because I just don't think they're good. I think they're talented, but just on the back end, like they haven't been able to cover anything so far. And I mean, you're talking about PFF grades. Like if you look at it by team in the SEC, A&M's coverage grades are 13th out of 14th. Only South Carolina is worse than them when you look at team-wide coverage grades. And, that's not everything, right? And the season's still young. Sample sizes are small, especially because not everybody's really played more than one good team yet. But it's going to come down to can Auburn move the ball or protect and just win these matchups in the trenches. And with the banged up offensive line, I'm a little more nervous about it than I would be if Auburn if we knew we had Cam Stutz and Tutal Miller on Saturday.
Yeah. When you talk about protection, right, and you're talking about the pass rush from the A&M side, what I think is what they've got to be thinking is we need to force Peyton Thorne out of the pocket. Every metric says that Peyton Thorne on the run versus Power 5 competition is going to produce mistakes. So they will focus on this, certainly, right? And those guys are going to get a lot of encouragement to get after the quarterback. But you brought up Auburn's wide receivers. And I do want to kind of hit on this a little bit. If you give Peyton Thorne time, 100% on Saturday, you're going to see him target Rivaldo Fairweather and Jay Fair often, right? He's going to go. This is the time of the season where you start to figure out who your go-to guys are, and you go to those guys. One of the questions that I had for Hugh Freeze in the presser on Monday was about the wide receiver combinations that we saw from Auburn. Zac, it was a ton. Right, I saw Coy out there with Martner, and there were just a bunch of things that we just had not seen before.
Yeah, Amari was out there more. It seemed like, yeah, totally.
Malcolm went out there, in the first offensive series. So
Malcolm needs to be out there all the time, but nobody asked me.
Agreed. And to me, it pointed. My question was, what's going on at receiver, Coach? You are doing a bunch of things there. He said, we're still trying to find our footing in that room. I'm paraphrasing him, but they are still searching for some answers in that room, particularly on the outsides. So I understand Javarius Johnson is a little banged up, but you've got to go to your go-to guys at this point in the season. And can Jay Fair and Rivaldo Fairweather create opportunities for Peyton Thorne to get the ball out of his hands quickly and neutralize this A&M pass rush, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to be looking for there. If you give Peyton Thorne time, I think he's going to find these guys and he's going to have a pretty good day.
Yeah, and I think you can involve both of those guys in the RPO game because it's going to be short, quick stuff to both of those guys.
Yep.
And I think especially early, because we don't know how Peyton's going to look. When he hit the road against Cal, he didn't look as comfortable as we would have liked. And I can't imagine College Station is going to be friendlier to him than Cal was. So that, to me, I think is what they're going to have to do early. I think your early scripted stuff is going to have a lot of that in it. Quick stuff to Jay Fair. Tom Brady always called them drive starters, where you'd hit Welker for a 3-yard, catch, or Julian Edelman or whatever. I think you need drive starters to Jay Fair specifically. Rivaldo. Jay Fair leads the team in targets by a fair amount. Then it's Shane Hooks, and then it's Rivaldo. Rivaldo's been targeted 7 times, and he has 7 catches. So good things happen when you throw the football to your ginormous and athletic tight end. But, yeah, and then also I want to see Auburn do more 50-50 balls. And I'm not talking about fades in the red zone. I'm just talking about give Rivaldo Fairweather a chance. Give Shane Hooks a chance. Give Jair Shorter a chance. In these situations, especially if it kind of takes a while to get the offense going, give somebody a chance, because I'd rather you do that on 3rd and 8 than some of the stuff we saw them do on 3rd and long against Cal. Just give somebody a chance, stretch the field, and see what happens. This is why you went out to get these bigger bodied wide receivers. Go out and give them a chance to really impact the offense and impact the game. So,
Zac, let me
go ahead.
A little bit of maybe a hot take here. Auburn, through 3 games of the season, does not, in my opinion, have an identity on offense. Sure. I don't think that the play calling has reflected a particular identity. I think it's reflected that they're trying to figure out what they have. But will we see an actual offensive? Will we see a philosophy of sorts on Saturday? Think about the last 2 games. Cal, they clearly came out and tried to establish a run on the road. It didn't go great. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it didn't go great. And then again, Samford, everything was about getting Peyton Thorne settled in, assuming that he's going to be your starter the rest of the way. To me, that's clearly what they were trying to do. Sure. So Hugh Freeze has talked about teams not knowing what's coming being an advantage. And I think it's good for teams not to know what's coming, but I think you still got to know who you are. And I'm sure Auburn has checked the driver's license yet to see who they are. Right?
I think they want to be. I think they want their identity to be a team that can run the football.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I hope the way the Cal game evolved because of turnovers and really, unfortunately, time turnovers. I hope that doesn't dissuade them from trying to be something that they're not. But I don't think the play calling and the scheme and the game planning at Samford was about them trying to find their identity. I think it was about trying to get Peyton Thorne comfortable.
Exactly.
Which is fine, right? I mean, you can't be a good football team if your offense, if the leader of your offense, leader of your team, your quarterback isn't comfortable. So, I mean, that could feed into your identity as an offense, no matter what it is.
I don't love it, Zach, because you I don't love that it's game 3 and we're still talking about that, because in my mind, that's why you bring a guy with that kind of experience in.
I think they fumbled it, though. I think the whole quarterback carousel didn't help him.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that as well.
And so it's like, you got to do something about it. And maybe they did it. And maybe it was in time. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? We'll figure that out Saturday.
Fun fact, Auburn does lead the SEC in rushing yards per game at 215.7.
Yeah.
It doesn't
there's your identity.
Stat. Yeah, meaningless stat at this point in the season, but yeah. I thought that was an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, I'll take it. All right, there's a narrative that's popped up a little bit due to a question that Hugh Freeze was asked at his presser earlier this week. Can I debunk it a little bit? Do you mind?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you mind?
Let's go.
We'll do that in just a second. Right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Jace Medical. Jace Medical, they have a product called the Jace Case. And their big thing is you don't want to be caught unprepared. Everybody, you need to take care of yourself and, of course, your family as well. But these days with supply chain and there's so many different things that happen as far as access to healthcare and access to a physician. Jace Medical wants to make sure that you are prepared. They have a product called a Jace Case, and they have it's got multiple antibiotics sent to you, prescribed by a doctor, one of their doctors, that happens very quickly, and with instructions on, okay, if you get some sort of infection or you have some sort of issue that you need to address and you can't get to a doctor quickly, the Jace Case is the product for you. You go online, you fill out a form, you get a prescription, life-saving medication sent right to your door. You can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using my code LOCKEDON at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON. All right, Mike G. On Monday, Hugh Freeze was asked about Texas A&M's third down defense, which is very good and statistically very impressive. They are third in the country on third down. They have had, the opponents against them have had 34 opportunities to convert, and they have only allowed 7 third down conversions on the season. That's actually tied for first, but they've had fewer options than the teams in front of them, which are Michigan State and Utah. So about 20% of the time, just over 20% of the time, they are allowing a third down conversion, which is really good. Here's my thing with that, because everybody's kind of taken that question and his answer to that question and ran with it. But Auburn's fourth. Auburn's fourth, and they've had more opportunities as well. They've had 7 more opportunities, 41 third downs forced, and they've only allowed a conversion on 10 of them. So that's just right at a quarter, just under a quarter of the time. So I don't think this is that big of a slant towards Texas A&M. But we've all kind of taken that because Hugh Freeze gave us a nice quote about it, and he talked up Texas A&M, and he should, right? I think Texas A&M, they may not be the best football team in the world, but I do think they're one of the most talented rosters in the country because of the way they've recruited, and that's exactly what Hugh Freeze said on Monday. But I think this narrative of like Texas A&M being unstoppable on third down and like way better than Auburn, that's a big mismatch. I think it's a little unfair to what Auburn's done defensively so far this year.
Yeah, I think when you talk about this, really the big question is, how is Auburn's offense going to do versus that third down defense?
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Now, all right. And so Auburn is 47%, I think, on the season, Zach, in terms of third down conversion on the offensive end. And it's, I don't think it's indicative of talent. I think it's more indicative of play calling and scheme and flow of the game and a lot of other things, right? Sure. Yeah, that affect that as well too, because you can have a really bad call that has no chance, and then everybody will run and blame it on the players, right? Mm-hmm. So now going back to your point about Auburn's defense, Auburn has been pretty damn good on defense here through, the first 3 games of the season. Now, again, the competition has to be taken into account, certainly. But they do look fairly assignment sound. That secondary, we ball hawks. And even on in other years, we've not seen them come up with interceptions at this rate like they have.
Sure.
And I do think that if they generate a pass rush, you're going to see those guys on third down come up with some turnovers on Connor Wegman. It is completely possible. So, where does Auburn rank here? Well, defensively, these guys are third in the conference in total defense and total yards allowed, right? They rank Zac first in terms of passing yards per game, 155 passing yards per game. Now, again, it's got to be taking into account who they played here, right?
Right.
And then in terms of rushing yards, they're middle of the pack at 109 yards per game allowed on the ground. And then the most important stat, which is yards allowed per game, Auburn is third at 12.3 points allowed per game. So this has been a pretty good defense. After that first game, Hugh Freeze talked about sitting down with his defensive coaches and kind of getting into them about what some things UMass was able to do. And since then, in my book, they played very admirably, but you've had stars emerge, right? Jalen Simpson, Donovan Kaufman, like who thought he would be one of the best DBs in the country through 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, the Senior Bowl's tweeting out like, hey, we may invite, your whole room, tweeting at Zach Etheridge. Like, we may invite your whole room to Mobile because the NFL wants to meet them. Like, and they're doing it through their play, right? I mean, like going into the year, nobody was excited about Donovan Kaufman. Nobody outside of Auburn.
Give us some credit.
Outside of Auburn. Outside of Auburn. Nobody outside of Auburn was excited to see Jalen Simpson. Now, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, my gosh, these guys, you got to watch them, especially if you care about, scouting guys for the next level, because all these guys are draftable right now.
Right. Well, I agree with you in saying that Auburn's defense deserves as much attention as A&M's defense is getting right now, talking about how good those guys are. When you bring it, part of the
Mike, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I know we're almost out of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we got a prediction to get to.
Yes.
Do you mind? Is that okay? Yes. All right. Real quick. Who wins on Saturday and why?
Look, at the end of the day, right, Auburn has the horses in the one deep to keep up with Texas A&M. I think it's completely being overlooked. And look, man, we boog a lot on this show, Zac.
Love booging.
We love the book. We love the book. I think.
Are we about to boog?
No, I think Texas A&M wins this game by 10. I think when you don't have an offensive identity, and listen, part of the advantage to booging is we love to be wrong when we're anti-boog. But
that's correct.
Auburn has given me the feeling so far this season that those games where it's like, man, if we could have just scored 3 touchdowns, they would have won that one. That they're may still be in that mode. We'll see how much they figure out against a talented team on Saturday on the road. But I'm not sure if it's come together as a team just yet for this team. And this may be one of those losses that tells them a lot about who they are and what they need to fix to be who they think they can be moving forward.
All right.
I don't think they scored enough
points. Let
us
know what you guys think of Mike G's assessment on the game. Mike, how can people check out everything you guys have going on at the War Rapport?
Go over to YouTube, hit subscribe, become a patron. We've got a lot of great stuff, film reviews, firesides. We're all over the place, the War Rapport, working hard this season to bring you guys lots of coverage.
Yep, worth your time. Absolutely. You can read all my written work at auburndaily.com, and we will see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.